Blog Talk Radio. You are now locked into the Express Truth Show, presented by Mark Hamilton and Noble. Real talk, real action.
There are many ways to support the Express Truth Show. The first way is to purchase an Express Truth t-shirt. Now, how to do that? Go to www.thehatman.com, go onto the t-shirt and purchase an Express Truth t-shirt. We do them in all sizes. The second way is to leave a 5-star review, whether you listen on Podomatic, whether you listen on Player FM, whether you're listening on Mixler or iTunes. Leave a 5-star review for us. The third way is to share the show with all your friends and family and let them know about the Express Truth Show if you enjoy the show, that is. Also, purchase our award-winning documentary, Uncle Tom, which there is a link to it in the description below. Make sure you purchase Uncle Tom if you haven't already. If you've done any of these things already, thank you, and thank you for all your continued support. Now back to the show.
In the building. Shalom, balance, and paradise. This is a mad thing. You still with me, AC?
And prosperity, sibling on there.
Yeah, man, this is a mad thing. Have you been on all this time? I couldn't hear you.
Well, you know, one of the things was I didn't want to speak if I was. I didn't want to speak and say anything. I didn't know if I was on or not. So I muted the phone.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Nah.
And I didn't want to look crazy talking to myself. You know, you already said I talk too much.
Give thanks, sibling. Give thanks. So we made it through this technology barrier. Trust me, we will stay on. I ain't going to get kicked off again. We got one. I think we got my co-host and Prime Minister in with us too. Shalom, balance, paradise. Is that you, Prime Minister?
Yeah.
1111.
Yeah, I can hear you, brother. Peace and prosperity.
I hear some background though still.
Can you hear me? I can't hear. I can't.
Yeah, I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, yeah. What's going on, man?
Blessed, man. This I don't know what's going on with this particular broadcast today, man, but it's proving to be a little more than a little challenging at the moment.
You know how this blog talk goes. It's not the easiest to operate.
So come true, man. Introduce yourself, man. Introduce yourself to the siblings, then. Brian.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, yeah, man. I'm in the building, man. I come with an Express Truth, and we're just here to go through the motions and do what we do, man. You know how blog talk has been has proved to be a bit of a difficult one to get right. So please excuse any technical difficulties that you may hear, but you know, we're trying to crack it, man, because different means of listening is always great. And it's one of those days in the UK where it's freezing cold, So I mean, a lot of people's spirits are down, but when you listen to the express truth, man, that brings your spirits right back up.
True indeed, King. True indeed. I can definitely co-sign that, mate. We've been under a lot of haze and cloud today. Yesterday was a lot brighter. We had some sun, getting our a little bit of melanin upload and download. Unfortunately, the siblings, or fortunately for the siblings, them over there in the Caribbean and over in America, you get access to the sun a lot. Over here, when it comes, you need to just be thankful when that day comes, because the temperatures around here, man, it's not nice, and it's not. You ain't gonna get warmer. We're getting into the negatives. I'm sure they're talking about -9 or something like that overnight, or something foolish.
Yeah, very cold, very cold. I heard of one case of a man actually froze to death in Birmingham city centre. That's how cold, a homeless man. And that's how cold it's been out in the UK. Yeah, man, this was about 2 days ago. So we have to give. So you wrap up out there, man. So wear your base layers and all that, your long johns, your thick socks, your sheepskin gloves, your woolly hats, your beanie hats, whatever you want to call it, scarves, nudes, and stay warm.
Yeah, man. Protect yourself, man. Protect yourself. So, actually, AC, you ain't even introduced yourself to the siblings, then, man. I'm true with this, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did. I think in the beginning I said, peace and prosperity, but maybe not a complete introduction. AC, House of Meroe. Yeah, I definitely looking forward to building on. The subject is quite, I say, challenging, because I feel personally that the issues with the so-called Negro is we do have so many questions and so many ideologies that it becomes difficult for us to work on the same sheet of music. So I think it's important whatever subject that comes out of the question that you ask about the Negro. I think we got to find, I think the challenge is to find like equal ground for each of us where we can get something accomplished.
Yes, definitely. But we're gonna look at this as we built on for a short period prior to the broadcast. We're gonna get into the actual physicalities of the so-called Negro, the mind state. We're gonna look at causation. We're gonna look at a bit of the history. We're going to look at some ideologies and some ideas. For some, it might be a little uncomfortable. For some, it's going to be quite far out there, possibly. But ultimately, we're going to go from the bottom to the middle to that high peak, and we're ultimately going to look for a platform and a means of how we, as original people, can come together and prosper. Ultimately, to build dynasties and to build nations, which is something I speak of all the time. But I think we need to have this conversation. It's definitely needed. We're going to trustfully have the input from many different chains of thoughts, so we can get to not the question, but get to the answers of the question. So, Prime, what are you saying? What you think about the Negro question? What do you think? Who are the so-called Negroes?
When you say who are the Negroes, can you break it down a little bit better? Because I didn't get the show info, as I'm a last-minute host.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so I'm talking about historically. It's more of a generally a scientific term they allegedly use as. But at one point in history, as you know, when we look at our passports today, they show something totally different to what they showed maybe 10 years ago. So at one point, our forefathers who were known as Negroes what do you think about that? How do you think that really applies? Where do you think the that was actually done? Let's try and peel back the layers of that word based upon what you know of, sibling.
Okay, well, from my understanding, from my personal understanding, the word Negro came from some sort of Spanish, some part of Spanish history. That was a word that they used to describe black people. And in black people traveling around the world back in them early days, it just became the norm to label black people Negroes, and then they just started to call us Negroes an awful lot. In America, we have to get that correct. It was America that it was largely used, the word Negro. From my understanding, that is, I know that in the UK, they never really used Negro. They used to call us just straight nigger. That's it. See what I'm saying? They would say all kind of different words to describe black people in the UK, but in the States, it was Negroes, and that was used to describe a black person. Was it the right word to describe a black person? No, of course it wasn't. So what I'm saying, we should have never been described. I don't like that word, and I don't like the word colored too. But that was another word largely used alongside Negro, colored. They would say colored, but if something's colored, that means it's not the norm. So it's like saying you have all white bread, and then you've got a colored bread. So the colored thing's different. Is basically what they're trying to say. But if something's different, that must mean that they're the original, which isn't correct. They're not the original.
Yes. But even if you look at it from what you just said there, that analogy, the white, etc. Just looking at that, or just thinking about that itself, isn't white itself a so-called color, or is white, as some say, is devoid of color? It's
white
part
is definitely
of,
it's definitely a color, but it's like what I'm trying to say. I'll break it down a bit different. Is like, okay, you know how you'd have like a games console come out, like you'd have the PS4, and the PS4's black standardly, and that's how it comes. But then they will have a limited edition, colored edition, which is different to the original. So when you use that word color, I always say it's like they're almost trying to say it's different to the original. So it's almost like they're subliminally trying to say that white is the original, when in fact white is not the original. We know that's not the case, but that's the way how they try to put it across in saying that. You see what I mean? And I think that's what they've done with the word Negro as well. Like, yeah, those are Negroes over there. So like they're different from us. They're Negroes. You see what I'm saying? And the words, I mean, the word's still in use today, in especially in America. People use it a lot. I know a lot of white people use it behind closed doors. We know that the black people in America call each other nigger too. So a lot of power has been given to these words.
Yes, definitely. And in that vein, before I pass it over there, you see, the origin, as you said, is Española, which describes, it's all about color. We're talking about color now. Negro, Negrata, we're talking about color, black. And the only thing black which we possess is what's on our head, our hair. Our skin comes in various shades of brown. So this falls in line with what...
What white people are... When I think of white, I think about a piece of paper. And I don't see no white man who's as white as a piece of paper. So we have to look at that too, because I do hear a lot of people say, we're not black, we're brown. I hear that. But then you'd have to say, white people ain't exactly white, are they? They're like a cream. They're like an off-white.
Oh. You said it, King, and we can even go further than that. We can go further than that because they're pink, lamanji, orange, green. Let's look at stages of an accident, trauma. Did they turn a variety of different colors just for the bruise? Green, purple, yellow, the full potential spectrum of the rainbow. And then when we look at when your physical body is gone through decomposition, etc., it turns white. Death is white. That's an excellent point, sibling. Hey, come to you, AC.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. I think kind of going back to what you were speaking on the color references, and it is a well-known fact that white, the term white, or in its original form, blank or blanca, was actually started by wealthy individuals who did not want to acknowledge race as a color. They wanted to establish a race of wealth. So you had these very wealthy Moors, you had these very wealthy Jews, you had these very wealthy Arabs, and all of these individuals gathered under one race or one family that kind of rules the world today, and they called themselves Blanca, which means no color. And later it was attributed to white, and it was utilized by Americans, and this is why a lot of those families got pissed off at Americans, and they say, you call yourself white. You're not white, and you got a lot of Moors that teach this today, that Blanca was actually a race of individuals that became a race out of wealth, and it wasn't out of color. Matter of fact, they didn't ignite. That's what Blanca means. It means to be without color, and that was their race. If anything, green was their race, So and then later on, Americans took on the terminology white, as if though to pretty much siphon the energy that being Blanca, had given those wealthy families for so many years. So America, in some contexts, the average American, even the lowly Scotsman, became wealthy over here, and with that terminology and with that mentality of making themselves rich.
When you say Blanca, that as soon as you said that word, I just picture Street Fighter 2 and that green guy with the. So is there a correlation and connection to that sibling? Is that what you're saying, or
no?
Is that just like...
you know what? I might be pronouncing it wrong, but Blanca is either the Spanish or a terminology. A translation of the word white. Am I saying it wrong?
Oh, okay. Isn't it Cole? It's Cole rather than a Blanca. I'm sure it's Blanco.
It's Blanca or Blanco, because you have different translations or different dialects. But basically, it comes from the terminology. White is derived from Blanca, which means to be without color, blank. That's what color is. So there is, white just means blank, to be without color. So when you got these families who called themselves white or Blanca, this was a code terminology that they went under, that they were very wealthy and very powerful individuals. That's why there are some whites in Spain, some whites in Africa, some whites in China that are Asian in descent, African in descent. They got dark skin, they got yellow skin, they got yellow skin, red skin like the Arabs, but they still call themselves white. This was a terminology that was done by wealthy families that trickled down into American culture later on, and they called it white. But the original terminology was just people coming together who did not want to acknowledge color.
Okay.
That's my terminology of it, man.
I get it. I 100% get it. Where does the Negro come from? You alluded. Let's stay on AC for the moment. You alluded to. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think you alluded to some form of non-Earth beings and stuff.
Yes. Well, and see, there's the term Negro is a more modern term that a lot of people think derived from nigger and Niger, but the truth of the matter is, Negro was the terminology that was put upon indigenous bush people. And I mean, and there's a distinctive difference between the Negro of a land and the nigger of a land. So when I speak of nigger, I say that the Sumerian gods, the entities that came down that spoke of in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the tablets, 2,000 some tablets of probably even more that they found in Sumeria, spoke about Enlil and Enki and 24 elders and other entities that came down to our planet from the North Star, which is pretty much Venus. They came from the planet Venus and they came to our planet. And when they came here, they mined gold. The gold drove them crazy. And when the gold drove them crazy, they demanded that man till the gold for 6 days, and on the 7th day you were supposed to worship God. Well, that worked for a little while, but when you do research on the Dead Sea Scrolls, you find that they speak of how these entities actually tried to force man that already existed here. Indigenous man had already existed on this planet, on this plane, when those deities came here. They had a big fight. And when the fight was over, the indigenous Negro or the indigenous black man or whatever you want to call him, he won the fight, but they went their own ways. And that's when God, that's what we pick up in the book of Genesis, when he say, now let us make man after our image and after our likeness. To say that in that context is to acknowledge that man did exist before the gods came to our planet. I hope that kind of answers, kind of like where I believe the Negro originated from. It later became something else,
Okay. So all right then. So what name would you suppose or put onto the original people?
Well, I personally call the original people Canaan, which is one of the names, using reverse esoteric psychology. I'll tell you something very interesting about the name Canaan. It has several different translations, but there are two main translations, maybe even three. The first is host, humble host. That is the most profound translation of what Canaan means. And supposedly that is what those Sumerian deities called the indigenous man that was on the planet. It was actually two. He called one Nagas, meaning the serpent, which means these people fought back, against the gods. And then he had Canaan, which was the humble people. So it's pretty much the two same people, one race of indigenous man, but their natures were different. The Nagas did not take any shit off the gods. They fought back. They rebelled. Canaan was very humble. They could be pushed over for only so long, but Canaan was known for being possessed. But using reverse esoteric psychology, Canaan, if you actually look where the word canine comes from, it actually comes from the word Canaan. It also translates as dog. But when you use reverse esoteric psychology on that, you reverse the dog as God. I know it may be reaching here in context, but when you really do the literary authority, the origins on these things is actually quite stunning. I call us Canaan, humble hosts, or either the Nagas, not the niggers. The niggers got a whole nother, concept of where they derive from, but we can get onto that later.
Sibling, just you. This is like a rabbit hole. Every word you're saying, I want to ask another question on it. But the Nagas, isn't that an Oriental thing?
No. When we pick up on the terminology of the Nagas, the most earliest translation of it is going to be out of Ethiopia, when they used to call their king Nagas. And that's hence the book, the Kebra Nagas. The Kebra Nagas. Yes. So they've been dealing with the serpent, and that's some people in Hindu call it the Kundalini energy, and then you have people in Africa who just simply said it was Dambala. Dambala means serpent. So all of this serpent worship. I think what you're talking about in China. He was called Nagarjuna.
Okay.
So there's a consistency of serpent, but the serpent was simply translated as sentinel or soul, which means, the Nagas people were entities that had an indwelt intelligence inside of them. So like these indigenous people, you know how they call it instincts? When we have the ability to do things, we can sense that somebody's about to call us on the telephone. We can sense that we have this. That's the serpent that's in you giving you forewarning about something. Okay, you know what? I ain't going to go to this party, and then the party got shot up. Your serpent, a lot of times we have to do things like excess of alcohol, excess of smoking, not exercise, eating the wrong foods to kill off of our Nagas. But the Nagas is not, authoritarily a people, more so a people with an indwelt spirit/intelligence that we have been taught to be not aware of.
Right. Just to repeat, Prime Minister. So, where do you think the starting point for Aboriginal folk is geographically? Are you saying it's on this earth, or are you taking it outside of this physical planet we're on?
Honestly, the answer to that question, my personal view would be this earth, because everything man. See what I'm saying? I would say started on this earth. Personally.
Okay. Can you give a geographic, or what is your inner over understanding of where original people come from? Geographically, what place?
What Africa? I know that there's
Africa,
a lot of different ideologies, and people say different things, but I just think you look at where the sun is, you look at where the most black people are to this day, and it's the continent of Africa. So I think we all came from there, to be honest.
So, all right then, let's look at that. Let's build on that in some more detail. So,
yeah,
would you say that we basically migrated out to, say, to where the masses are now, for instance? So, some of us went from Africa and migrated to South America, to Central North America, and then some of us migrated to Europe, and that's how the world is kind of populated. Like the out of Africa theory, I think they call it.
I believe so, yes. Yes, I believe we traveled to different lands, different parts of this earth, and that's how we populated the earth. But I think it all started from Africa and spread out from there.
And it was all right then. So how do you think we got? Do you think it was just over the time that we all just started looking real different? Because we got loads of different variations of black folk, but then when you go and start looking at, i.e., like the European nations, you can see, you know, quite similarities of sorts. But then you've got Asia, you've got, you know, is that all just down to like over a amount of time, things changing, or do you think that there was multiple different types of Africans who then moved, and how do we get to these different types of nations we got now, King?
Because you have to think about it, yeah. A man who's closer to the sun is going to have a different appearance than a man who's further away from the sun. So if you look at the Europeans who are in the cold, their hair grows down. See what I'm saying? They've got a different style of nose, a different type of skin. If you look now, even today, right here in the UK, it's freezing cold outside, but you'll see a young English kid wearing just a T-shirt outside. But if we was to go outside like that, yeah, exactly. Even vest in some cases. If we was to go outside like that, we'd feel it 10 times more than them. So I believe that with traveling, getting away from the original climate, yeah, which is heat, constant heat, and being closer to the sun. That's where the appearance changed. That's how the appearance changed. Now I can't explain the appearance of the Asians with the small eyes and things like that. I can't explain that one. That's a question for House of Meroe, that one is.
Yeah, so I had to take you there, man. I had to take you there. I'm hearing you on that. I'm definitely hearing you on that, King, without a doubt. That's definitely a theory, and I will say a theory which is very widely held as being truth. There are bits of it which, to me, you can't observe a lot of this stuff talking of, because it would have happened over a very long period. But it definitely does make sense to a point, without a doubt. What do you think, Casey? Where did it all start?
Well, I think, as far as the Nagas, which is the warrior indigenous, and Canaan, which is the humble indigenous, the original people of the plain, I believe that there was a story of Pangea of sorts, and something took place on this plain, and when that happened.
Before you go into that detail, break down Pangea, because some siblings will be like, well, I ain't never heard of that.
Okay, you're right. Pangea is pretty much when this plain was in one gathered land. Now, here's something interesting to note. If you go and you do research on Project High Jump with Admiral Byrd, who went to Antarctica, some of the things that they found in Antarctica states that we're pretty much covered 360 degrees circled by a dome of ice. And over our heads is actually a dome of water. And this is one of the things that the Bible and many other ancient texts, and when you do even some of the hieroglyphs in the story of Mayat, how she's domed over the land and stuff, how they said she created a dome with her body. The whole idea is these are creation stories that state that at one time, before it was called Pangea, I believe that we are part of a bigger part of Earth, because some of the things that Admiral Byrd said that they cited was on the other side of the ice, they can see unlimited forests, unlimited land, unlimited forests. So we're not living on a globe, not as we know it. But one thing that was for sure is that at one time, when you can call it, it was the concept of Pangea, all of this land was one, a dome of ice, a dome of water and ice surrounded this land and encapsulated this particular land when it was all together at one. Now, supposedly the sides that were connected to the dome, as the dome grew, it pulled the land mass apart, and it began to rip the land apart into 7 pieces, though all of the land remained under the dome. Now, there's an ancient story that say that we have siblings outside of this dome that is watching us. The whole concept of Santa Claus, the whole concept of God, the all-seeing eye, he's in the 7th of heavens, which means he's out of our atmosphere watching us. Supposedly, we have advanced siblings outside of this dome paying close attention to what we're doing in here, but somehow something happened where we got infected. And when we got infected, we got enclosed in this dome that we are now calling Earth. And then that landmass, as the ice began to expand and grow and the dome got bigger, it ripped the land apart. So right now, as the so-called ozone layer began to deplete, a lot of people that believe that we're going to, if you've noticed the major increase in, UFO activity and UFO this, UFO that, I don't think that those are UFOs. I think that those are more intelligent life forms that exist outside of our dome. I think we should be trying to find out why were we quarantined off from the rest of the earth.
Whoa. That kind of ties in with one of our guests we had on before, isn't it? Prime Minister Mark Sargent.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
mad.
That was a great debate. The Flat Earth, we've done 2 with him. Shout out to Mark Sargent.
Definite. Oh, and shouts out to Virtue TV as well. My young little brother down there in London, North London, Northwest London.
North London. Yeah, that's it.
Definite, man. But so what do you think about that Flat Earth thing then, sibling? So are you saying basically the same thing that Mark Sargent was saying and a whole load of other people are saying currently, and there's plenty of debates that indeed this globe is, this Earth is not round, it's not spherical, it's indeed flat, and as biblical text states in many verses and chapters, there's 4 corners to the earth, and the dome, 3 levels, and it also mentions some, a place called Sheol, etc.
Yes.
Admiral Byrd not only navigated it and went to the Antarctica, etc., but didn't he also fly a plane and apparently go into the hollow earth?
Wow. Yes, I heard about that.
So it's there's credible people coming up with some information which is to the contrary to what we were taught about this Earth, this globe, terra firma.
Yes.
It really turns it on its head. What have you got any references that the siblings can check regarding some of that information you just laid out, siblings?
Okay, yeah. Well, one of the things that can really expand your wisdom on the flat Earth theory is literally go on YouTube and type in flat Earth, and you will see how many videos, and there'll be linked to other videos that will reveal so much knowledge to you that it's almost unlimited, and it's extremely scientific. It's not nothing like you got a bunch of pseudoscientists getting together making up a lie. No, what you do is you actually have government agencies like NASA that are dying to keep the globe theory alive because they make millions of dollars being donated to them off of the globe theory alone. Millions of dollars. And you got to ask yourself this one question. Why is there so many individuals who seek out to go to Antarctica killed? They are murdered over and over again. When anybody who's a freelancer who has enough money to go do research on Antarctica or write books on Antarctica, and they are considered to be a credible source, that man or woman will die. They just killed somebody about 6 months ago in July. They killed a dude, and he was a famous archaeologist that went out there to Antarctica trying to prove that we are these guys, this is what they're trying to prove. We're encapsulated. We're quarantined off of the rest of the earth. The earth itself, more or less from what we see, because it's boundless, is nothing more than a plane. And a portion of that plane became infected and covered with a dome of ice. That's why when you get cold weather in your environment, you need to understand that a lot of us consider it a curse, but the truth of the matter is it's the earth's way of producing, or that part of the earth, or the dome's way. Let me be more specific. It's the dome's way of producing mucus. Mucus kills off. Snow is nothing more than Earth's mucus. And what it does is it kills off bacteria. That's exactly what that mucus does. In the summertime, we have major pollen count. We call it summer snow over here, where there's white pollen. It looks like it's snowing, it be so much. But a lot of that pollen is actually carrying microscopic fungi. And that's what a lot of stuff, the red tide and the blue tide and all of that stuff that is coming in and starting to kill off specific species of man, animal, and plant. This fungus that we are being attacked by is very intelligent, but you're blessed to be around snow. Snow is a cleansing, especially when you live around so many Europeans. Y'all don't want to go over there in the UK. Y'all do not want to go a year without snow. Y'all don't want to go a year around them people that has been there how many centuries, where they used to shit in the streets, piss in the streets, and do all of the nasty stuff that they used to do. The frequencies alone without their feces and all of the stuff that they have mixing with y'all holy energy is condemning to you. So when y'all see the snow in the UK, give thanks, because you don't know. It's almost like this story of these gods, where this particular god had his people, and these people were known for production of corn. And they had the sweetest, most beautiful corn in the world, and they would sell this corn and make prosperity throughout the earth with this corn they were known for. Well, God came down, their God came down and wiped out the whole market of them. All the corn, killed all that corn, and they said, what is going on, God? Well, God is punishing us. He wants us to change. So they repented. Then the next season came around. God killed off their corn again. Then they cursed God, and they said, to hell with you. We're going to turn our back on you. Blah, 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 blah. We repented, and you still, you're taking our blessing away from us. To make a long story short, what happened was God allowed that corn to grow, and the people ate that corn. That corn was elated with fungus, and all of the people died that ate the corn. And the people lost their wealth, and they destroyed themselves. And that's what God was trying to produce. He couldn't say, hey, look, the earth's intelligent. And this is when I say God, I'm saying there's an intelligent force that's watching over us. It can't say why I killed the corn. Just understand that it's a blessing. Same thing with the snow, in other words.
What book is that from?
Huh?
What's that from? What kind of religious text is that from?
Oh, that's called an esoteric story. There's a lot of esoteric stories, like the Bible itself have been built off of thousands of esoteric stories from different genres, from different religions. You'll see a little bit of Rama and Sita in the Bible. You'll be surprised how many, that's why it's called many books. The Bible's called many books because they gathered esoteric stories from all over the world. Europeans did this, and they collected and canonized, got that word, they canonized a book. And so that's just one of the esoteric stories that I had heard, but they didn't put it in the Bible.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So in other words, appreciate the snow. You're around infected people, and we're all stuck in this. No, be real, because that's what it does. It kills off bacteria. That snow is mucus. And it is very important for the indigenous people. It's very important for the indigenous brother and sister who lives around the wicked. Y'all need the snow, man.
I hear what you're saying, and I like the concept, but I don't know what the conditions are where you're there, sibling, but over here, when there's just a little bit of ice on the road, the UK stops, literally, because they don't plan for nothing over here. You know, you'd think because we live on a little tiny island and it's cold and rotted over here, they'd have things, you know, in order. But as I say, all that need to be is a little bit of ice on the road, or the road's wet a bit, and people drive like idiots. They're driving hella slow. They're having accidents. They're just not driving for the conditions. You know what I mean? So it's treacherous out here, man. And you're talking about proper snow. You can forget about it. You can literally, in some places, you can't even go nowhere. A journey which would take you an hour will take you 3 hours or something like that. You know,
so
and
don't
also,
you see how good that is, though? Don't you see how good that is? Your body, the body of your land is shutting down. It's like Britain, when you see that snow and ice in there, Britain has the flu. But the flu is a good thing for our bodies, man. Once a year, they call it flu season. Our body goes through an expellation. I'm telling you, it's good for you, man. Snow is good for you guys.
On that one, I think we may have to agree to disagree. I hear where you're going with it, sibling, but in practicality, it's messy. It's real messy. Snow also allows germs to hibernate. So they're not being killed. They're just being in a suspended animation. When that temperature then rises, they're ready to start multiplying again and start stealing that havoc. You know what I mean? But I hear what you're saying. I hear what you. Sibling, I think we got a caller ending in 8248. Shalom, balance, and paradise. Who it be, man?
Yo, Rahubat, Shalom, Salam Alaikum. What's going on, family? Hatet, Namaste. You feel me? What's going on, family? Peace and love. Huhi.
True indeed, sibling. Shabbat Shalom.
Yo, Shabbat Shalom. Lalato family in London, in Birmingham, wherever we at, all over the world. What do we have in the chat? Who's talking right now?
We got a Prime Minister.
Oh,
Prime Minister.
Peace.
Yeah, peace. Who we call peace, man, peace.
Peace, brother, peace.
We got you're in the chat. You're in the chat room.
The chat. No, I'm
not in the chat.
Okay, now I'm not in there myself, so I'm not even moderating it. I'm on the surfboard, so I haven't even opened it up. It won't allow me to open the chat on my surfboard. But we global, man.
Can you send me a link for the chat?
I'll send it. It's in the group. If you go into the Facebook, I've sent the link in that group. But I'll see if I can send it to you in your Hangouts as well. The Express Truth group.
Okay, let me see. But peace and love, family. Peace and love.
Yeah, man. I just sent you in your in the Hangout.
Okay.
Yeah, man. So we're there. Let's start picking your brains, sibling. Let's start picking your brains, Weaker. Where do we do it kind of in reverse? Because we've covered a fair bit still, and AC's taken us on a very wide journey, man.
Okay, so we started about an hour ago. Yeah.
What's your take? Where do original people come from? What's the landmass, or if you don't equate it to a landmass, where outside of this planet or this Earth do we come from?
Okay, it's a lot. I'll condense this. Okay, first of all, we have to all identify with continental drift. I'm pretty sure everybody in the blog talk agrees with continental drift. That's a scientific fact, right?
Yes.
So a lot of people try to identify indigenous African people with Africa, when in fact black people were the first people all around the world. To negate that African people are indigenous to Africa and the first people of Africa would take away from the idea of continental drift, which means that melanated people were all over the planet simultaneously at one time, before anybody with a recessive gene manifested on this planet. You follow? So before we go outside this planet, let's start with that, and let's kind of identify with who's on the planet today. Where did everybody come from? See, for example, what do the Arab man come from? Do you guys know?
In what frame of mind? Biblically, the Ishmaelites.
Yeah, when we say the Ishmaelites, right? Even because anybody, a religious person that deals with the Bible, will say the Ishmaelite came from Hagar. What was his name? Abraham and Hagar, right? And their son Ishmael, which also had 12 other children, right? But it goes further than that. Okay, all right. When we talk about, I'll start with the melanated gene first. When we talk about melanated African indigenous people, we were the first people on this planet as Patahites. You guys often hear me say hydro-pygmies, which is little people, which still exists to this day in certain parts of Africa. You have small pygmy Africans, we'll call Patahites. We're the first people who evolved on this planet from a process of panspermia, right? Which Europeans have called the aquatic theory, showing that everything evolved out of water. It's a scientific fact, right? So melanated people, we were the first people here as Patahites, right? And then who was on the planet at the same time as African people and indigenous people we'll call the Dravidians, right? If you say that the Arabs, where the Arabs come from, right? You said the Ishmaelites or Ishmael. So now when we talk about the Dravidian, the East Indian with straight hair, melanated, dark-skinned black person with straight hair, where did they come from?
You asking me that? Where do I think original people come from?
No, not the original people. I'm talking about the Dravidian people, the Dravidian dark-skinned, straight hair.
Okay, the stringy hair. They are. I would say they're either a clone or they're part of the graftation process of the original mixed with something else.
No. See, the Dravidians, the dark-skinned Dravidians, they are indigenous people that came to this planet, right? They're the first people to actually speak out of their mouth. See, African people who are on this planet will communicate with telekinesis or telepathy, but they were actually the first people to speak. Melanated people, we started speaking 49,000 years ago, right? Verbally, when you talk about the Patahites. But when you talk about the Dravidian people, those are the first people to speak outside their mouth. They came to this planet, right, from the Orion star system. They call it Nirvana. If you look at the Hindu text, they say that they came from a place called Nirvana, which they call heaven. But they were on this planet as taller beings, or you would call them Nephilim, when at the time, melanated people, we were Patahites as little people, right? Scientific fact shows that the first Africans were really small individuals. So now when you talk about the Arabic people, they come from a mix, or I would say a hybrid, between the Dravidians and the Flugeloid caveman Caucasians, right? What was the gravitation? The gravitation that you're talking about, which created in turn the Persians or the Phoenicians or the Chaldeans, which Abraham comes from. So Abraham was indeed a mixture of Caucasian and and Dravidian, right? Which gave us our Persian or Chaldean. It's a fact that Abraham was a Chaldean, because where did he come from in the Bible? The city of Ur in the Bible. So now, from that mixture of a Persian mixing with an African, Egyptian named Hagar in your Bible, right, gave us another hybrid, which is called Ishmael. Because it's an all actual fact that Abraham came from Chaldea, or Ur of Chaldea, migrated to Africa, Egypt, and your Bible talks about this, and it took a wife named Hagar, because his wife Sarah couldn't have children, correct?
It was barren, yes.
She was barren. So he had sex with an Egyptian woman named Hagar and had Ishmael. Ishmael had 12 children, which created what we know as the Arabs. So most people don't know where Arabs come from. That's where Arabs come from. They're another hybrid from that first mix. So let's go back to the Flugeloids. The Flugeloids was a hybrid mixture from the hybrid Caucasian man, which was a caveman that was they'll call flugaloids, right?
Describe
which is
that.
Neanderthals.
Describe that for the siblings, man.
Let me slow down. I'm going too fast, right? Did y'all grasp everything I said so far?
Yeah, man. Yeah, are you getting this, AC? You getting this, right?
Of course, I definitely have something to speak on it, but yeah, I'm getting it. Absolutely.
Okay. Come to you.
Okay, so I'm gonna continue. So the Islam they break down somebody named. Give me 1 second, family. Give me 1 second, fam.
No problem. Hey, AC, you know about these flugoroids, right?
Yeah, I the flugoroids, as far as I know, is a Dr. York theory, and it was something that there are other Aryan believers spoke on, but most of that came from like Aryan lore and Aryan mythos that Dr. York picked up. That's what I heard, but I don't believe per se in the flugoroid theory the way he's expressing it, but I understand the origin of where he's getting it from.
Okay. All right, family. So as I expressed on the other chat that we had, I spoke about there being different type of Caucasian people, not just one type of Caucasian people, and there's different evolutionary processes. Just like with the melanated people, there's different evolutionary processes. It would be totally wrong for us to say that every Caucasian came from one source, because genetically this is not true. If you look at their biology, you'll see Caucasian people with different strands of textures of hair, right? And this is because there's different evolutionary processes. If you look at the Neanderthal gene is not native to Africa, which is we can all agree on, right?
Yes.
Neanderthal, they evolved outside of Africa, which in reality, science always say we're all one, or we're all one of humanity. Like humanity is all one, come from one source. And if that's a fact, why is the Neanderthal gene not in Africa? You follow what I'm saying? So that caveman, that cave beast, that's what we would call a flugaloid. See, a flugaloid is only a title we're using. If you don't want to use flugaloid, that's good with you. If you want to use Neanderthal, caveman, that's fine. But what we do know is that we did have a caveman that occupied places in Europe, Turkey, and we know that Turkey have a lot of underground cave carvings and places where people habitated underground living spaces in Turkey. And then you have the Caucasus Mountains, right? The Caucasus Mountains, where a lot of non-melanated beings occupied this particular geographical area to hide themselves from the sun, because it was a conducive area for their genome, right? So those beings, right, which the Muslims, they have this Yaqub theory, right, where Yaqub grafted a European man out of the original man, which wasn't the original man, but was the Dravidian man. You follow? If you look at an albino Dravidian, it looks just like a Caucasian to this day. If you take the time on Google,
I've never seen that. No.
Could you do that?
But
do
it makes
really
sense.
Fast. If you're by the internet, look up albino Dravidian or albino Indians.
I'll do it right now. Sigmund.
And I have a lecture on this called God Unmasked. If you go to my page, my YouTube, Huhi, HUHIKAA, and I have a lecture on this called God Unmasked, and I go through it. But in short, you have the Dravidians, which no one can put their finger on where exactly they come from, right? But I'm telling you that they were here simultaneously with the first Africans on this planet, and they came from a different star system. They have different gods, different everything. We talk about the Hindu gods, Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, all those deities. right? And they talk about their craft and their own extraterrestrials and their doctrine. So they have their own origins out of this planet. Melanated people, like I said, with panspermia, that's still us having our own origins outside this planet, which in fact, science tells you everything on this planet comes from outside this planet, which actually makes sense because the sun grew everything around itself, right? So everything literally came from outside this planet.
Okay. I just googled that some imagery, and the majority of them indeed do look like classic Europeans, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And that's why they call them Aryans from the Iranians, because they have that mix. Remember, there's so many different mixtures that come from that Dravidian, Caucasian, Dravidian, African mixtures. They're different mixtures. Even if you go look at Africa to this day, and you look at Ethiopians, or you look at Eritreans, they have Indo-African look that Nigerians don't have, that people from Ghana don't have, right? And people say
yeah, loose tails as well.
Yes, it's different. That's when that mixture, that hybrid race in the Dravidian and Flugeloid or Neanderthal, whatever name you would like to use, came into Africa and started mixing their genome with Africans. And that's where a lot of traditions and religions that's in Africa come from when you talk about Yoruba and things of that sort. Yoruba is not natural to Africa. Yoruba is actually from Arabic origin when they practice idol worship and things of that sort, praying to their ancestors, their spiritual system, came into Africa and migrated and mixed in. Certain Africans, like the Ethiopians and Eritreans and different Africans, mixed in with them. And you can see that in the language Swahili. Swahili is a mixture of Arabic and Bantu, which creates a mixture language of Swahili. So you will see that impact of the Middle East on Africa in different instances, where they mixed in their genome with the Ethiopians, with some people from Uganda and different things of that sort. And then you had people who adopted their religion but not had sex with them or not mixed in with them, creating hybrids. And that's the people from Nigeria who accepted Yoruba.
Okay. So, yeah. Yeah. That was deep, Sibling. That was deep. AC. I want to back up.
I want to back up a little bit. You hear me, family?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, to back up a little bit, because we said who's the Negroid. I just want to give some history of like who's on the planet. I ain't even get into the Chinese man and different Caucasian species, but I want to go back to the African man, and I want to see if I can agree with you guys on one thing, that we all came from the Sans people of South Africa. Correct? Those are the oldest people on this planet.
Hey, hold that for one moment. Huhi, hold that. Let me just see if my co-host back with me.
Okay.
Shalom, Balanced Paradise. Is that you, Prime Minister?
Yeah, back in. Yeah, I'm back in now.
That's it. Come true, Huhi.
Okay, I said I wanted to back up a little bit because I didn't want to get people confused. Just focusing on the African genome. It started with the Patahites, or what we'll call the Sans people or Bushmen of South Africa. They scientifically are the oldest people on the planet. And if you look at their futures, everybody come out of the if you could Google that for me right now, that would be dope too. If you look at the Sans people of South Africa, the Bushmen, they have every trait on the planet. They have the Asian trait with the eyelids that what do they call it? What do they call those eyelids? What do you call that genetic structure? Give me a second. Or they call it the epicantric fold. You hear me?
I hear you.
Epicantric fold, eyes of the Asians. The South Africans have that. They have the chin of the Indians, the brow of the Aborigines. They have literally everything in them showing how different people came out of them. See, a lot of extraterrestrial species mixed in with the Sans people of South Africa to create their own genetic genome. Because when you look at the wars in heaven that the Bible talks about, those are actual wars that was happening in the Orion star constellation. And then a lot of those beings came to this star system, right, this solar system, to expand their genome or to actually expand their living or their life in general, because there was a lot of war going on. And we talked about in the last interview that we did when we talked about the snake in the garden, or this reptilian being, or Leviathan, which when you look up in Hebrew says a sea creature, a sea monster, right? That sea monster, Leviathan that the Bible talks about, that walking and talking sea creature, actually is a reptilian being, right? That was going to war in these heavens with the Palladian beings, and that came to this planet when we talk about the 200 fallen angels in the Bible and things of that sort. So these beings came to this planet and they start to mate with different humanoid beings. They start to have sex, and they start to trying to expand their genome. And that's what happened with the Caucasian man. That came from the Palladian being trying to expand their genome on this planet. What we talk about, what we see in the Bible is, and the reason I'm referencing the Bible so much because I know you brothers, you guys deal with the Bible, right? Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I deal with the Bible. You deal with the Bible. I deal with the Bible. I deal with that, yes, King. So.
And that's understandable. But I try to relate everything because what I do know is that the Bible is a Masonic book, and the Bible has a lot of truth in it. Once you just have to spend your time to decode it.
Yes.
Right. A lot of people read the Bible like I guess nursery rhymes or for more moralistic principles, but they don't literally take their time and decode it and see what's really going on. Because the Bible was actually just a collection of the Sumerian text, Enuma Elish, the Gilgamesh Epic, and different older texts mixed with different Egyptian texts and put together to have their book that we have to this day. You follow?
Hey, Huhi, before you get any deeper, you've dropped like some heavyweight jewels here. I want AC, right? Can you backtrack on some of this? Because a lot of some of what Huhi spitting now is very similar to what you're saying, but there's some of the terminology is quite different. Are you co-signing a lot of this here, especially in regards to the Bantu people?
Well, you know what? He's some of what he's saying, from my perspective, is rooted in the truth, and this is the beautiful part about different sources of information. No matter where you get it from what I've seen in my studies, is always going to have trace elements of the truth. And one of the things that I noticed he said specifically was they did research on the Bush people of this land, and they found that he had Asian, he had this, he had that, But in truth, that goes back to the Sumerian God's theory, which is let's better say it this way, let us take a man and make him into our image and after our likeness. So there already existed an indigenous man on the planet before those beings, whether you would call them scientists or gods, before they came to our planet and made man, there existed the Nagas and the people of Canaan, or the Afro, which is interesting. He said the Bush. If you look up the word Bush and Afro, they're synonymous. Or better yet, you want to go deeper, they're called heathens in the Bible. A lot of times when you say, don't do this like the heathens, don't do that like the heathens, I'm sending you into this land, it's always the heathen. And a lot of times heathen and Canaanite is also synonymous. But if you look up the word heath literally mean uncultured land or uncultured wild bush. So anytime you hear that's a key phrase for indigenous when anybody say bush people. So I think Huhi got a great point with, I agree with a lot of what he's saying. I just think that when you want to get a better picture of what has taken place, I personally feel that you have to reach from different sources, because it's kind of like the Tower of Babel. When all the languages were scattered, that metaphor or that allegorical story of all the stories being mixed, you have some truth there, you have some lie. Now, briefly, just to answer on the concept of what he was saying about the original man, I do not believe that Earth was here and then it became seeded. I believe that just like in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it states, I think it's called the War Scroll. Of the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's different scrolls. And there's one called the War Scrolls. And that scroll specifically talks about the war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. Well, when the gods came to our planet, they tried to enslave us, the indigenous Afro-Bush heathens. But we rebelled, and they could not enslave us. So they said, let us make a man in our image and after our likeness. Now, they call that man nigger. They call that man nigger. And the reason why they called him nigger, Adam, the first Adam was nigger, it's because these deities were black-skinned entities. And they wasn't giants. They wasn't tall. The tall gene on our planet did not come in until the Aryans came on our planet, but that's a whole other conversation. These deities were very short. They came from Venus. They did not exceed probably like 5 feet tall, but here's the issue. They had advanced technology that made them giants. So when they created their people, these 7 different races, like the Asian race has a distinctive genetic difference than the Hindu race, than certain parts of the African. Even in Africa, the people from Kenya have a totally different genetic trait than the people who are in Ethiopia. So these are different people that came from different entities. And check this out. When you were a kid, wasn't all age, well, I was born in the 70s, so I was born in 70. So when you look at this, when I was a kid, Asians used to be short, all of them. This is a known thing. Before Europe invaded Asia, all of them people were short. It would be amazing to see an Asian over 5 feet tall. And same thing in India, the same thing in certain parts of Africa, like Brother Huhi was talking about, the pygmy races. These are, look at the pygmy races of the Dogon tribe. The knowledge that these pygmy people had was so advanced, it could have only came from outer terrestrial entities. So I agree with a lot of what he's saying. I just think that he might need to expand his studies outside of York. Not to say that you're completely York, but I used to study under Dr. York too, and a lot of what you're saying, it seems almost still kind of like in harmony what he's teaching, what he taught back then.
Yo, peace. That's love, family. And I could agree with some of the things that you say as well. Am I still in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with some of the things that you say as well. And one of the things you said that was interesting was that that tall gene didn't come until you get the Aryan race, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get that out there. That's what. No. I know what you're talking about when you say Sasquatch.
the red hair Sasquatch in Russia. They have a history of the red hair Sasquatch in Russia. Those were the original Aryans, over 8 feet tall.
I don't disagree with you, but one thing I do want to say is that we have so many different types of extraterrestrial beings. This universe is so vast, and we talk about the different beings that visited this planet. They varied in height. Even some of the first ones, they weren't always short. You have your Greys and Zeta Reticula who came to this planet, and even the Greys and Zeta Reticula, they vary in height from 4 to 7 feet, from about 4 to 7 feet tall. Right? Actually, 4 to 12 feet tall, the Greys and Zeta Reticula. But when you talk about the Rh negative blood type, that came from the Palladians. They produce your Nordic race, who had the Rh blood. They were a race that were created here, right, from Palladians, the Sasquatch, and they was mixed with different things. That's why they had that animalistic nature. And we see that when they're so close with dogs, and a lot of them have eyes like wolves or canines, right? They was upgraded because they was mixed. One thing with this gene, when we talk about this Nordic man, they were upgraded over time. As you can see, they went really far. I was telling my mate not too long ago, they have organic almond, what do they call it, eggnog? I was like, damn, they came a long way from eating people to making organic eggnog. Like, this is crazy. But my thing is, their gene was upgraded over time. They went from walking on all fours. they were mixed with different things. They were mixed with the baboon, the mandrill, the simian, the wolves, the canine, and the pig. There was different things that was mixed with the genetics, and that's why when they make sunscreen, they test it on pigs. When they do a lot of their scientific things for themselves, they test it on pigs. You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And they actually have dog within them, dog canine within their genetics. That's why they're so close with them, because they actually mated with them, and their genes were tweaked with that canine or that wolf gene. You follow what I'm saying? They have a movie called Jupiter Ascending, and he states in the movie, "I'm closer to a dog than I am with you." You guys have to watch that movie Jupiter Ascending, because it's a lot of truth in that movie when they talk about extraterrestrials, when they talk about genetics being almost spiritual, how we incarnate within our genetics of our ancestors. But what I'm getting to is that the European man, he came from a project, what was going on with the Palladians. Remember, the Palladians, they are totally void of melanin, so they cannot survive in this climate. They telepathically worked with different individuals to shape what we'll call the Caucasian man. And that's where you get your whole Yakub story from. You follow what I'm saying?
Can I respond to the Palladian? I think it's important. If you mind, can I respond to the Palladian?
Yeah.
Okay. It's important that we understand when you bring up the Palladians, every time you bring up the Palladians and you say that they were this European race, I want to explain to you what I have learned over my years about esoteric knowledge. Esoteric literally means hidden and shared knowledge among certain groups. And this knowledge is hidden and shared among certain groups to produce wealth and success. So what happens is, just like they stole rock and roll, just like they stole the technology, the white man created the light bulb, the white man created peanut butter. You know, pretty soon the white man going to be created every damn thing if we don't kind of start claiming and understand that they lie. So it has just been my lesson that they have lied about the Pleiadians and the concept about who the Pleiadians were. In my studies, in my esoteric studies, I found that the Pleiadians were actually an Afro-alien race, and they mated with the indigenous people, and those indigenous people that they mated with, their hair became extra thick, so thick that it napped up for the first time. We used to have soft, curly Afro hair, but when we made it with the Pleiadians, which were Afro people, so what I'm saying in a nutshell, white folks steal everything, and now they've stolen I'm just telling you from my studies, bro, they did not come from the Pleiadians. They lied because you get that theory from them. They're the ones that say that they came from the Pleiadians. They didn't. I mean, that's what I've learned.
I just want to produce some facts, brother. All right, the Caucasian man didn't create shit, dog. You feel me? A lot of the technology that they have today came from extraterrestrials, came from us. We invented most of the inventions in America. So that's a spell, right? That's a spell that they're trying to place on people, that they're putting an image on everything. That does not mean the Pleiadians don't exist. And I'll give you some African sources. When you look at
the Pleiadians exist. I'm saying they didn't come from the Europeans.
And I get that. What I'm telling you that they are non-melanated. When you look at a Zulu tribe, a man named Credo Mutwa, right? Credo Mutwa, he's a part of the Zulu tribe. He's a shaman, right? And he talked about different extraterrestrial species. And they are Zulu legends. I looked them up myself, where you have non-melanated Palladian beings who came to Africa. And one of the things that the Zulu said is when the European man came back to Africa, this Nordic hybrid Caucasian man came, they identified them as these Palladian species. And I'm going to give you the exact Zulu, let me look it up for you, family, the exact Zulu myth that they have of these non-melanated beings. So what's a lie about Palladian beings? When you look at Palladians, there's a whole campaign about Palladians being positive, loving beings. There's a whole campaign of these images of non-melanated Palladian beings being this positive, loving species who are trying to help humanity. That's what's false. And there's a big campaign that's been going on since 2010 about that. And I've always been negative to that. But when we go into Africa, go into tribes like the Zulu, right? They have a depiction of these beings. They drew them. And Credo Mutwa, which is a part of the Zulu tribe, he brought this to light. And I'm going to give you guys that.
He called
that
them
reference.
Pleiadians?
I'm going to give you the name for them
siblings,
right now.
Siblings, hold up. Give me 1 minute. I'm just going to run an advertisement real quick just for give you an opportunity as well to grab your info, Huhi Ka. 1 second.
There are many ways to support the Express Truth Show. The first way is to purchase an Express Truth t-shirt. Now, how to do that? Go to www.thehatman.com. Go onto the t-shirt and purchase an Express Truth t-shirt. We do them in all sizes. The second way is to leave a 5-star review, whether you listen on Podomatic, whether you listen on Player FM, whether you're listening on Mixler or iTunes. Leave a 5-star review for us. The third way is to share the show with all your friends and family and let them know about the Express Truth Show if you enjoy the show, that is. Also, purchase our award-winning documentary, Uncle Tom, which there is a link to it in the description below. Make sure you purchase Uncle Tom if you haven't already. If you've done any of these things already, thank you, and thank you for all your continued support. Now back to the show.
Ha ha! Big Stigs, you're locked into the Express Truth Show, yeah? Keep it locked. Rah!
We back in the building. Shalom, Balance Paradise. Huhi Ka, have you got your information?
Peace and love, family. I'm pulling that up right now. Give me a couple more seconds. I'll have that in no time.
No problem at all. AC, you still with us, King, right?
Peace and prosperity, sibling. I'm here.
Blessed be, blessed be. As I thought, there's a lot of similarities between some of the concepts that you and Huhi Ka hold, but as I highlighted, there's some few differences, which we are definitely seeing right here, right now. But on the whole, I can definitely see a lot of commonalities within what both of you are saying. One of the things which is good, which Huhi Ka and yourself is doing, is providing these reference points which people can then cross-reference and see exactly what's what, whose information is holding up. That's what it's about. You can't just talk off the top of the dome. Sometimes we do most definitely have to provide these sources, these reference points, so people can study to show themselves approved. You heard?
Absolutely.
So how we getting on, Huhi Ka? You ready?
Give me 1 second. I'm going through my, I have a lot of notes. Let me just get this. And I'm going to give the source where people can find this too. I want to give as much information as I can.
As you always do, Susan, as you always do. So while Huhi Ka's doing that, AC, promote your book, man. Promote that masterpiece that you got.
Yes, peace and prosperity, bro. Yada, thank you for bringing that up. The Holy Bible of Canaan, that's spelled WHOLLY, it pretty much breaks down the origin of where we are today, and right now we're in what is called the adapt or die stage. It's time for us, to leave no stone unturned and comprehend our origins and comprehend our future and comprehend where we are presently. And the book, just leave no stone unturned. You can get it off Amazon, and you can also contact me at the House of Meroe at yahoo.com. I give you a great deal, and I'd love to have you learn what I have learned. I'd rather share what I've learned. It's absolutely incredible.
Each one teach 12 is the mantra. You know what I mean? So we got to do it.
Okay, hello? All right. If you look up the Zulu legend on Mazunga, that's what they call them. MZUNGU. They are called, as they are called in African legends, these tall white Nordic beings were widely reported in Africa long before the white Europeans first arrived. The tribe's people believed that the European settlers were the returning Mazungu, and they called them that name. So basically, what that's saying is that long before they ever saw a European or Caucasian man, they had what you call the Mazungu, who was this tall white Nordic being. You follow? And when they,
I'm trying to connect the Pleiadians, though.
Give me 1 second. They call these are Pleiadians. If you see an image of, because they drew up, they depicted them, and look just like the depiction of a Pleiadian. So you have these tall whites, right? And what I'm showing you is that there's different legends that's validating these tall Caucasian beings who came to this planet. And like I said, my brother, you said the first one was the Shaggies that was tall. I'm telling you that there was different extraterrestrial beings, tall extraterrestrial beings. The Pleiadians were one of them. Actually, I'll go as far as saying this. These Pleiadian beings was in contact and communication with the U.S. government. President Eisenhower came in contact with these Pleiadian beings. Even George Washington came in contact with these Pleiadian beings, and it was documented. And I'm going to give you some information on that
I love
as well.
the fact. Can I respond real quick?
Yes.
I love the fact that you're documenting and you're providing sources. But this is one of the things that I've learned with esoteric knowledge. See, one of the reasons why esoteric knowledge is hidden is because esoteric knowledge is closer to the truth. When you can go to Zulu, which is somewhere they know that we, especially as Afro-Americans, they shove Shaka Zulu down our throat. Everywhere there's an Afro-American or Afro-Indigenous person live, whether he's Afro-UK, it doesn't matter. They shove a lot of African history down our throats. And what I'm telling you is when you're citing sources, you're usually citing sources that is specifically designed to lead you astray. So if you're not dealing with esoteric knowledge, which is if you're not going and speaking to the Rosicrucians about some of this secret knowledge, if you're not going and doing the research of like Admiral Byrd and what he found in Antarctica and these other, almost like science. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off, but I'm familiar with all that. Like I've been dealing with, I'm trying to explain. I've been dealing with this information even before I was in Wapi. I was dealing with this information for a long, long time. And when it comes to Pleiadians, the Zulu source is not the only source. There's people, there's minds who used to come in contact with these beings. There's people all on the planet who came in contact with these beings. When you said there's the Afro, what you'll call the Afro beings, there are beings like that, but they're not Pleiadians. You're mixing them up. You follow what I'm saying?
I mean, you know one thing I don't want to do, and you just reminded me of something. I don't think it's healthy for us to debate, for me in particular, I don't think it's healthy for me to debate with you and go back and forth or whether the Pleiadians were Afro or whether they were European. I think this is one of the reasons why Noble and the brother put the show together. It was because this is where we need to say, you know what, does that really matter whether they was Afro or whether they were Aryans? We can move on to something more progressive, like about what we are supposed to be doing now. Like, okay, what's the next step about what we can give the people that can, move us in a different direction.
Thank you, sibling. You took the words right out my mouth. That's exactly where I was going to come with next.
I do agree. I agree partially with what you're saying, but when we talk about the history of this planet, it can be important to identify beings and where exactly they come from. To my knowledge, family, when we talk about the Pleiadians, they came from the Pleiadian star system, yet from the northeast star of Orion called Aldebaran, or the Ashtar command by their leader Ashtar Sharin, Ashtar, who ruled the Arcturus and Venus. And if we look at places like a man named Philip Snyder. Philip Snyder, he worked on underground bases for the U.S. government as a geologist. He was assassinated, right? But he came out and he was talking about these beings, and he's one of the first people who came out and talked about the Grenada Treaty of 1956 that our U.S. government had with extraterrestrials. And he's not the first person to reference this treaty that we had, and it's not the first treaty that we had with extraterrestrial, our government, U.S. government. But when you talk about George Washington, if you guys could get a picture of his Masonic apron, he has the 7 stars of the Pleiadian star system on his apron, on his Masonic apron. Also, if you look at the obelisk in Washington D.C., it's aligned with the Pleiades star system. Family, this is some stuff you want to look up. So these European people, they hold these Nordic-looking beings, Pleiadian beings, at high regard, and they become in a communication with these beings for a long time, right? And that's my perspective. We can't move on, but that's really important. The family, look up the sources that I just gave. And they talk about this in the Bible in Job 9:9. They talk about beings that came from the Pleiades and Orion or Arcturus star constellation. Like I said, the Bible is a Masonic book talking about exoteric and esoteric. Exoteric information is in the Bible. When we talk about Job 9:9, they tell you where these beings come from. Multiple times in the Bible. They also go as far as to connect the Enemo Elise, a Sumerian tablet, with the Bible with a god named Tammuz. And Tammuz was a being who came and gave the Bible to these beings, or these people who we call persons, the Chaldeans, right? And he literally at that point putting humanity under a spell. At the point when we want to talk about the Tower of Babel, when it was coming together with one language, let us all come to one language and let us be of one people. And these gods said, let us go down there and confuse their language, right? Or they said, men have become like us. Let us go down there and confuse their language. Those are Sumerian beings, or the gods, Sumerian gods, who came down and polluted and manipulated our structure that we had in Sumeria, not Africa, right? That was building a communication tower to communicate with extraterrestrials.
Say sibling. Hold up, wait a minute. Let's get back to geography now, right? So you're saying that Sumeria is not Africa? Is that what you're saying, sibling?
What I'm saying is that there is no Africa. We had what you would call a continental drift, where everything was one. Right?
Okay.
When we talk about that particular incident, I'm saying that happened in Sumeria, with the Bible references a man named Nimrod, who is part African from Cush and part Sumerian. Follow?
The first master mason.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that tower that they were building wasn't the actual tower or monument. It was actually a communication tower to communicate with extraterrestrials.
Right. Okay. What we're gonna do, siblings, is for the last. There's some jewels, man. You definitely dropped some jewels, as everyone's done. This has been definitely a very interesting and powerful discussion, man. 1,000 on the Shabbat. We got 15 minutes left. If we can spend the next 15 minutes building on the commonalities and some form of solutions for our nation, man, how are we gonna connect these dots, man? We got multiple different ideologies. We got people at many different varying levels, socially and economically. How are we going to get this, man? How are we going to build this nation?
That was a lot. Because I'm thinking about this one thing. The brother did make a great point about understanding the origin of our history, to know where we're headed in our future, because a lot of us are kind of stuck and we don't have no cohesiveness because our past is so disputed. Eventually, we're going to have to focus on where we're at. And, I get this from paying attention to Europeans. So say like, for instance, in some aspects of the Bible, they say, do not do as the heathens do. But in truth, in reality, they have not only do as we've done, they took our customs from us, built a nation after their image and after their likeness, and then they make us hate it. So when we get in other forms of religion, like Islam, we hate Christianity. But Christmas, the holiday of Christmas as we know it today, it was an indigenous holiday that had nothing to do with Jesus dying on the cross and all of that. It had more to do with a special birth of reincarnation. When it talks about the sun going beneath, everybody know about the solstice and whatnot. But I would give somebody a great idea. If you want to check out some good information on where white people come from, check out Gods of Cydonia. That's Cydonia, and that's by Richard C. Hoagland. Hoagland. Land. He's the leading source at this point in time on, and he's came together with a lot of other Rosicrucians, and they share information on where their people come from. So I think it's important. That's why I was talking about that we don't debate about it, but I just want to just put that out there so we can kind of have a better clarity of it. But far as what we do today is, I think if we can come together on the one concept that we're indigenous, we're the real people of the planet. There are people of this planet that don't belong on this planet, and they are dying today, whether they be Caucasian, whether they be African, Asian, and even some of our Afro brothers and sisters, they are dying. But we die from lack of knowledge of self. So we can come together. I really believe that if we can create a society of Afro or Bush individuals, indigenous individuals, we can take that, we can run that. I mean, we could be so powerful overnight, it would be incredible. And instead of trying to get the least of us, you know how they teach you in a lot of religion, we want your lowly, we want your homosexuals, we want your this, we want your gangsters. No longer does Jesus come back and he seek out the lost sheep. No, now we want the cream of the crop to build a nation. And these are the people that we should be dealing with. If we can't deal with the cream of the crop, somebody that's a doctor, somebody that's a contractor who knows how to build, and another brother who understands politics and how to build government, if we can come together on this, we can do this under the concept of simply sharing the one concept. When you're building a nation, the collective people must not be mixed. This is one of the things that Afro people, we're the only people on the planet that does this dumb crap, is we try to get everybody else to come in with us. We have to be collectively together by ourselves in order to build a nation. And I think that's the gist of it, but I'll let you build on it.
Yeah, I want to say thank you, brother. I do agree with you that we do have to reach a point of commonality. And I do feel everything that you said. One thing that I want to say is that we're fucked up, man. We're messed up in the game. Only in this sense, right? When you talk about us, all coming together, we're gonna reach a point where we have to fight each other after the white man is long gone. Because when we look at something like the precession of the equinox. The precession of the equinox, which you can look up, is something that the ancients showed and proved that we live in a cycle, 25,000 year cycle, where our sun and our solar system revolves around a bigger sun, right? Which create a process of 24,000 years is broken up into cycles of 6,000 years. So the Caucasian man, he can't live here. His genome won't last. So you was right. Once we reach the sun cycle, the dominant sun cycle, his genome won't be able to last because he don't have the proper elements within his genes. He's not carbon-based, so he's not going to be able to live under a magnetic sun. You follow what I'm saying? So we know, because if you look at a movie like The Time Machine, which came out in 2002, it showed European people going underground. And even to this day, they're spending millions upon millions of dollars on underground bunkers. You guys know that, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and even Philip Snyder showed Philip Snyder showed how he was working as a geologist underground, building underground bases. This is in 2000, 2004, 2006. So they spend a lot of time investing in their future because their future is not going to be under the sun. Now they're trying to go to Mars. They're already on the moon. They're trying to create bases on the moon, bases on the Mars. The movie The Time Machine, it showed how European people tried to go to the moon, but they did something crazy and they wound up cracking the moon. So their only goal was to go underground, and they had to feed off of the living melanated people on the surface of the planet. So what they're showing is that they know their time is up. If you look at a movie called Hollander is how they showed how they had to put a force field around the planet to block out the UV rays because it was killing their genome. They're putting it in their movies because they know their time is up. So now what we have a situation where once they're gone, we're going to be having to fight with artificial intelligence, AI, which they're creating right now, and we're going to have to fight with ourselves. You know why? Because now the idea comes, like the brother said, with our new nation, what are we going to build with? Are we going to build with homosexuals? Are we going to build with beings mixed or mulattoes? Because when you talk about genetics, a Caucasian is destructive. He's a destructive being. He's a disagreeable being. Melanated people who have high levels of Caucasian in them, they can still be a devil. They can still be disagreeable. This is a fact. And I'm showing you we're going to have to come down to all these things at the end of the day. So we're going to be constantly fighting within each other.
Can I ask you a question, Huhi?
Hold on. Let me just put a cap on this one more time. You have Caucasian people adopting black people. So that black child's psychology is Caucasian. And that black child will do anything for a Caucasian person. They will not stand in the room when you talk about Caucasian person without you fighting for them. Right? And now when you talk about homosexuality, which a lot of people seem to be accepting to this day, that's another thing, because a lot of African Americans especially are homosexual. And it wasn't like that before. It wasn't like that back in the day. So now when we talk about building a new society, we have to merge this sick African American society with other African indigenous societies like from South America, the continent of Africa, Australia. We have to create a system where we mix with each other and try to make that cohesive. Not just working together with African Americans, but working together with Africans around the world. Because a lot of African countries don't even accept homosexuality in their country. You follow what I'm saying? So we're talking about war within ourselves before we can even think about building a new nation. And that's why I agree with the brother when he said a lot of melanated people are going to die out too. Because the sun cycle is going to bring change, going to bring change in mentality and change in genetics. If the genetics cannot reach that magnetic point, you won't make it to that next level. But go ahead, brother.
Okay. In no way do I agree with building a nation with corrupt entities. And homosexuality is a corruption of the gene. What I call homosexuality is the agape curse. You hear a lot of brothers and sisters infecting themselves and cursing themselves by using the term agape, which they say means free love, but it actually means free love in the sense that you can love whatever you want. You're free to love whatever you want. Agape means you can love a dog, you can love a little boy, you can love a little girl that's 4 years old, or, that's what agape is. It's a curse that the planet or the plane of Earth has put on the minds of certain entities to stop them from reproducing. We cannot build a nation with homosexuals. We cannot build a nation with thugs. We cannot build a nation with anything. That day is over. That time for us to build a nation with the least of us is over. We're only wanting to build a nation with the cream of the crop from here on out. Brothers who know that it is important that they build sons with true masculine energy, and they build their daughters with true feminine energy, teaching them how to be ladies. And this is the only way we're going to be structured. But my question to you is, and I just need to know, do you support the idea, because I think this is what you just said, but I want to be careful, do you support the idea of homosexuality?
I support, what I support is understanding everything, overstanding everything. When we talk about,
I'm talking about homosexuality, not everything, because homosexuality, I think it's okay.
Family. This is why I say that. There's different things that can affect or cause somebody to be homosexual. Remember, when people say we didn't have homosexuals in Africa, we didn't have homosexuals, but we had something we call gatekeepers. When you talk about natural little children who's born with both entities, male and female, in one physical body. That's a male spirit and a male and female entity within one body. That's what you call a gatekeeper who can tap into the spiritual realm.
That's a genetic. Those are genetic mishaps that the Bible speaks of that you should cast off for at least 10 generations.
Brother.
Okay.
When you talk about, there's different things that can cause homosexuality. First of all, I'm gonna do this real fast because I know we don't have a lot of time. When we take a look at a view of homosexuality, this society, we have what we'll call an overproduction of influence of homosexuality. That's how we'll call that. There's people producing an influence, unnatural influence within movies, media, and within the foods to cause and spark homosexuality, to stop black males from producing, to create a large amount of homosexuals in our society, right? And that's evident with the food, how they're putting a lot of estrogen-based elements in our food, right?
Only the strong survive, brother.
Mood stabilizers and things of that sort to make men more docile and things of that sort. That's the actual fact that is being done, right? But then when you look in the womb, a woman can have a genetic defect, what you're talking about, in the womb, right? Where the woman, she's not secreting enough testosterone, she's secreting enough testosterone to create testicles in the child, but not enough testosterone for brain chemistry. So I understand what you're saying. That causes a genetic defect to cause a child to be more feminine, not homosexual. Because
I guarantee you that wait,
1 second.
Hold on, because if you keep going Huhi, sometimes I won't get a chance to respond to you. There's something that you said half an hour ago. So I'm trying to break you off at least every 5 minutes. I'm doing the best I can. But you just made a statement that need to be responded to. I'm saying that it doesn't matter what caused this child to become homosexual. They have been selected by nature, by God, whatever you want to call it, to no longer reproduce themselves. And that is a sign from nature that you do not need this bad seed to build a nation. We cannot build a nation with homosexuals, hands down, but we can't do that.
Okay, but I'm not.
Siblings. We're almost about to wrap this up. We got literally about a minute left.
One more thing. I'm not saying that we can or we should. What I'm saying is that we have people back in the day like Akhenaten. Akhenaten, what we'll call a gatekeeper, he had male and female tendencies. Akhenaten still had a wife and children as a gatekeeper, which he was a gatekeeper. Yeah, he was not bisexual. He was a gatekeeper. He had male and female entities within him. If you look at the Egyptian vendetta,
there are many ways to support the Express Truth Show. The first way is to purchase an Express Truth t-shirt. Now, how to do that? Go to www.thehatman.com. Go onto the t-shirt and purchase the Express Truth t-shirt. We do them in all sizes. The second way is to leave a 5-star review, whether you listen on Podomatic, whether you listen on Player FM, whether you're listening on Mixler or iTunes. Leave a 5-star review for us. The third way is to share the show with all your friends and family and let them know about the Express Truth Show if you enjoy the show, that is. Also, purchase our award-winning documentary, Uncle Tom, which there is a link to it in the description below. Make sure you purchase Uncle Tom if you haven't already. If you've done any of these things already, thank you, and thank you for all your continued support. Now back to the show.
Yo. Peace, we're back. I don't know why you just threw us out just then. Y'all hear me?